All right. So today we are going to start section 5.6, and me loves me some section 5.6 because we finally get into doing real math. None of this stuff where they give us the answer all the time or they give us part of the answer. Nope, we got to go out and find it now. Okay? So it's good because it makes you think a little bit, and it's really good because it's really not that involved. Okay? There's one extra little step that you have to do, and we can totally handle that extra step. Okay? So, the first thing that we have to talk about is something called the rational zero theorem. So if I have a polynomial function, and I don't have any of that extra information of, oh, this is a factor, or this is a zero, find me the rest of them, or factor it, and all that stuff. I don't have that. Okay? So if I don't have that, then I use what's called the rational zero theorem. And the rational zero theorem says that every rational zero, and a rational zero is a fraction, so every zero that can be written as a fraction has the following form: P divided by Q. And P is a factor of our constant term, that number that comes at the very end. So I take all the factors of that numbered term, and I divide it by all the factors of my leading coefficient. So to find all the rational zeros, I look at the left and the right side. And I take all the factors of the right side, and I divide it by all the factors of the left side. And that's going to take my infinite amount of zeros, and it's going to narrow it down to a list that I can deal with. And from there, then, we'll go forward with that list. Okay? So let's put it into work. So really, when you're solving, or when you're finding the rational zeros of a function, you are just looking at the right side and the left side. So if I need to find me all of the rational zeros, all possible, find all the possible zeros, I look at the right side, which is the number that comes at the very end. Okay? So 15. What are the factors of 15? What numbers evenly divide into 15? 1. What was I missed one in there. 1, 3, 5, and 15. Agree? 1, 3, 5, and 15 go into 15? Only those 4. Or are there 4 more? Negatives. Yep, we can do negatives of them. Because negative 1 goes into 15. Negative 3 goes into 15. Negative 5, negative 15. All go into 15. Okay? So we just add a plus and minus to it. Okay? Then I look at that number, my leading coefficient, my very first number. And I say, well, self, what are the factors of 2? What are the factors of 2? Factors of 2. Numbers that evenly divide into 2. Plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 2. Okay. Now I have to generate a list. So my list, I'm going to take each of the red factors, and I'm first going to divide it by the first green factor. So 1 divided by 1 is 1. 3 divided by 1 is 3. 5 divided by 1 is 5, and 15 divided by 1 is 15. Okay. Now I have to take all of the red factors and I have to divide it by the next green factor. And I do that until I've expanded all of the green factors. Okay. So 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. 3 divided by 2 is 3/2. 5 divided by 2 is 5/2. And 15 divided by 2 is 15/2. So what I've just done is I've taken my infinite amount of zeros that could possibly be a 0 to this function, and I've narrowed it down to 16. Now I've got a list of 16 zeros that I can work with. Okay? Because it's specific, there's a limited number of them, and now I can go forward. Okay? Before, if it was just, I didn't have any list of zeros, I would just be randomly trying numbers and I might not even have a possible zero in there. Now at least I've got a list of possible zeros. I can narrow it down and I can go forward. Okay? What I would like you to do now is I would like you to list me the possible rational zeros of this function. So I first look at that number. Factors of 8. 1, 2, 3 doesn't, 4 does, 5 doesn't, 6 doesn't, 7 doesn't, 8 does. Agree with factors of 8. Then I look at factors of 2. 1 and 2. Agree? So I take to make my list, I take all of the red numbers and I divide them by 1. Well, that's just going to be the list of red numbers. Then I take all the red numbers and I divide them by the second green factor. Well, 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and I already have that in my list, so I don't need to repeat it. 4 divided by 2 is 2, I already have that, no need to repeat it. 8 divided by 2 is 4, already have it, no need to repeat it. So we've taken the list of infinite zeros and we've narrowed it down to 10. Okay? So we're much narrowed, much less numbers to try that we could possibly choose from to find a 0. Okay? All right. So let's find all the real zeros of that function. X cubed plus 2x squared minus 9x minus 18. Okay? So the first step that I'm going to do, given a function, and I have to find the real zeros. Now again, I remind you that reading the directions is extremely important, because that's going to tell you where to stop along this bus route. Okay? If it says list all the possible zeros, you stop at step 1. If it says factor the polynomial, you stop at step 3. If it says find all the zeros, you ride the bus until all the way through at step 4. Okay? So reading the directions, again, is very important. Okay? So first, I look at factors of 18. What are the factors of 18? Mm-hmm.
Do we detach the negative from the 18?
Yep, just look at the number. Because we're going plus and minus on all of our factors anyways.
Okay.
So it doesn't, so you can detach. If you want to keep it in, it still is going to be plus or minus, but it doesn't matter. So, does 1 go into 18? What about 2? What about 3? What about 4? 5? 6? 7? 8? 9? 10, 11? 12? Nope. 13? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Any of those? 18. Okay. Then I look at factors of my lead coefficient. What's my lead coefficient? 1 is my lead coefficient. So my list here, because my lead coefficient is 1, my list is just my red numbers. Okay? So there's my list. If that's where I was supposed to stop, I circle, I move on with my life. If not, I keep going. I keep riding my bus. This is a find all the zeros case, so we're riding this bus for a while. Okay? Step number 2 says we have to actually find a 0. And we're going to find a 0 by using a number from our list. And we're going to use that number in synthetic division. Okay? Well, we're going to pick a number, we're going to divide it in, and if we divide it in right, we're going to get a 0 at the end of it. And then we know it's a 0. Okay? So let's try 1. So I'm going to synthetically divide 1 into 1x cubed plus 2x squared minus 9x minus 18. And if 1 is a 0, then this number down here will be 0. Okay? 1, 1, 3, 3, negative 6, negative 6, negative 24. Is 1 a 0? No. So it's not ever going to be a 0, so I'm done with 1. So that one isn't on my list, right? Or it's in my list, but it's not a 0. So now I got to try a different one. What do we want to try next? I'll let you guys pick. 3? Okay. Again, 1, 2, negative 9, negative 18. 1, 3, 5, 15, 6, 18, 0. Okay? So what does that tell me? That 3 is a 0. If 3 is a 0, hold on, Janelle. If 3 is a 0, what else gets told to me from that? That 3 is a 0. What's the factor? X minus 3 is the factor. Because if I work my way backward, I would say that x here was equal to 3. So then x minus 3 would be equal to 0. So then x minus 3 is a factor. Okay. All right. So step number 3 then tells me that I need to factor the new polynomial, or rewrite the polynomial into its factored form. So f of x can now be written as x minus 3 times what? X minus 3 times what? This was the result here of when we put 3 in synthetically. X squared plus 5x plus 6. Can x squared plus 5x plus 6, can that be factored? Yeah? Okay. If it can't be factored, then I'm done with this step and I move on to the next step. Okay. Since this one can be factored, two numbers that multiply together to be positive 6 and add together to be positive 5 are positive 2 and positive 3. This would be my next bus stop, complete factored form. Okay? So if it says factor the equation, that's where I would stop then. But this one said find all the zeros. So now what I have to do is I have to take my factored form and I set my factors equal to 0. Any ideas on what we're going to do from there? We're just going to solve all those. Okay? So that gives me 3, that gives me negative 2, and that gives me negative 3. Okay? So the zeros here of this function are negative 2 and plus and minus 3. again, depending upon the directions, it's going to tell you to stop either at step number 1 with just the list, if it says list all the possible zeros, or it's going to tell you to stop at step number 3, factor the polynomial, or it's going to tell you to stop at step number 4, find all the zeros. Okay. List all the possible rational factors, then find all the factors of this cubic. Okay. So, step number 1 says, make my list. First, I'm looking at factors of what? 18. One, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 18. Then, I look at the factors of my lead coefficient. What's my lead coefficient in this case? What is it? 1. Different numbers though. Okay? So my list, my first possible answer, or my first answer of the 2, my list is 1, plus and minus on all these. 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 18. So that's my list. Okay. Step 2, well, so that's this one. Found my list. What is this telling me? To which stop? The factor stop or the zero stop? Because it says find all the factors, so it's factor stop, right? Okay, so that means I gotta go on. Okay, so step 2, I gotta find one. I gotta find a 0. What do you want to try? Be a number from the list that you want to try. -1. Be another number from the list that you want to try. 2. All right, so this half of the room, okay, so these 3 rows, try -1. These 3 rows, try 2. -1 side of the room, did you get it to work? Okay, I didn't get it to work. Did we all get 28 though? At the end? Okay, good. 2 side of the room, did you get it to work? Did you guys get -20 also? Okay, good. All right, so those 2 are off the list. Okay? So, did we find one yet? Gotta keep going then. Okay, give me another one. This is the worst part because we have up to 12 that we gotta try. 6? Okay. Want to try 6? We feel confident about 6? No? Okay, so do we need another one?
Is there like a trick?
I'll show it to you tomorrow.
Why? Oh my god, don't make us work harder.
1? Did you get 1 to work?
Yeah.
Okay. Colin, you're not going to like the trick. That's why I'm not going to show it to you until tomorrow.
Why is it bad? Why is it bad?
No, I don't think you're ready for it. Uh-oh, 6. Hey, look at that. 6 worked too. So that means we find 2 of them in this round? Sweet, we found 2 of them. All right. Sure. Well, so let's go with 6 then first. So if 6 is a 0, what's my factor? If 6 is a 0, what's my factor? X minus 6 is the factor. F of x equals, so this is going to be x minus 6 times x squared plus 2x minus 3. Now I also know, because the other side of the room did 1, that 1 was a 0, right? So that means that x minus 1 is a factor. So this is going to factor to be x minus 6, and this has got to be x minus 1, and then I just got to figure out the other one, right? So, excuse me, that's going to be x, that's going to be plus 3. Okay. So the factors, or the factored form, is f of x equals x minus 6 times x minus 1 times x plus 3. Bonus coverage. What are the zeros of this function? 6, 1, and negative 3. Okay. The 3 zeros of this function are 6, 1, and negative 3. Okay. Well, it depends, because if it said stop, like if this were a test question, if you put 6, 1, and negative 3, you'd be wrong because you found the zeros and I wanted the factor form. You know what I mean? So if I wouldn't take off a lot because you still had it, you just went too far. Okay? All right? Good? So, I shortened up the homework a little bit. Six problems, be due on Monday. Okay. 3 of them are find me the list, and 3 of them are find me the real zeros, I believe. I believe it just said real zeros in that one. That's another thing too. There's a difference between all and real. Okay? All zeros brings into account I. Real zeros kicks out I's. Okay? So reading directions is extremely important.